Hi everyone, I'm Sarah Chantler. I'm a registered dietitian working at the Sports Science Institute of South Africa in Cape Town. I am a trail runner and here to add some thoughts on your nutrition for ultra running and when you start moving from the shorter distances into the longer stuff and when you move from your training into your racing and especially recovery. When you're considering your training and the fact that it moves from maybe 3 or 4 runs a week to maybe more runs a week, or just the distance increases or the time that you're out there increases if it's trail, you then will need to start prioritizing the fact that you need to add an extra, and that usually comes in the shape of your recovery or your meal that's right after your run. So firstly, when you start increasing your training, you want to decide when it is time to eat more. So often a lot of us will start with our watches. If they've got a calorie generator in them, you use the algorithm to think that if I've burned 500 calories, then I get to eat 500 calories. And it's not quite as simple as that. You do definitely need to translate the calories or the energy that you've used into taking in more energy. But usually there's a threshold where a lot of people, when they're running more than 5 or 6 hours a week, will then need to start eating more and prioritizing especially your recovery after your training sessions. So a lot of people then ask me, well, how much more do I get to eat with my increases in training? You have to take into account how long your run was, how hard it was, and how big a person that you are. So the smaller you are, the less energy you will burn. The bigger you are, the more energy you'll burn. Recovery generally requires some form of carbohydrate-rich foods with protein-rich foods together. So those are nice, easy combinations, and that's obviously why the chocolate milk has become so popular, because it is a combination of both. Or you can look at a chicken sandwich or a tuna wrap or egg on toast. All of those are nice combinations that enhance both the protein and the carbohydrate intake right after you run. If you're going on a big adventure and you're training for a multi-stage event, your recovery might actually need to change a little bit, just because it becomes a lot more important if you're doing back-to-back long runs, and then you might actually need to modify your meals as well to get in extra to make sure that when you wake up the next day for your second run, you have enough fuel to get the legs going. The simplest way to modify your meals is to consider an extra cup of your starchy-based foods and maybe an extra portion of your protein-based foods at the next meal or at one of your meals during the day. So sometimes if you're not a big eater, you might want to make it into a snack. But again, the nice combinations that you can look at can move anything from your favorite egg on toast to biltong and fruit. Or if you're vegetarian, you can prioritize having a chickpea salad instead. If you're into a multi-stage run, sometimes it is worthwhile also checking what the catering is going to look like in the evenings. It is useful to sometimes take your own food with you that you're used to if you find that that's better for you. Otherwise, in general, most caterers and most food provision will be things that are well tolerated and generally acceptable to everyone, but it's always nice to know what you're going to get for supper. When you get in from your day out on the trails, it is useful to always prioritize your recovery, make sure that that's the first thing that you look after, getting in that food that you need and making sure that you get in the extra that you need to then start the next day in a good balanced state. Now I just want to chat a little bit about what you can change during your running to make sure that you have enough fuel for the longer stuff. We generally always hear never try anything new on race day, and it's obviously exactly the same for ultra running or for multi-stage day racing. You really do want to practice whatever you want to try in your races during your training as well. The longer that you run, the more that you need, but it gets quite difficult to eat more and more the longer that you go. So it's easier to eat a little bit all the time. You can often use an hourly rate and just decide to have a snack that you pack in your bag every hour that you run. Because you guys are taking the step to go on to longer events, you sometimes then have to recognize the fact that you're going to be carrying a bit of extra gear. So with food can often take up the majority of your backpack. So it is worthwhile looking at the difference between the lighter options, which generally are more refined and sweeter, or the whole food options that are heavier and just take more effort to carry. It can be helpful to plan your race in advance and know what's available on the tables or at the aid stations so that you can minimize the amount that you carry in your backpack. So just to end off, it is really important that you prioritize your nutrition as much as your training as you start extending into multi-stage or into ultra running. Don't forget about eating that little bit extra. Don't forget to think and plan ahead for it. And then I'll see you out there on the road or on the trails.